Hello, dear friends. I am Dr.G.S. Mehkarkar, Associate Professor in Law. Now we are going to introduce criminal law vis-a-vis Indian Penal Code. Dear friends, criminal law deals with the crimes and social behavior. Criminal law is the main instrument to control the society and prevent the illegal activities. Law can be divided in basically two parts. One is called as an substantive law and other is the procedural law. So far substantive law is concerned, it deals with the definitions of crime and provide the punishments. So far procedural law is concerned, it deals with the procedure for the trials and all the proceeding takes place before the legal authorities. So far Indian legal system is concerned, Indian Penal Code is the universal criminal law for India. Whenever we say criminal law, Indian Penal Code is applicable universally in India. But then also, Indian Penal Code has not perfectly defined the crime. The concept of crime is very vast and it cannot covered by any particular statute. If we see or if we try to define crime, it's very difficult. To understand the crime, it is required to understand the social situation and the prohibited things. So far concept of crime is concerned, it is very vast. If we see crime that tries to define by lot of jurists, if we refer some definitions or some jurists, even the Blackstone, Galileo, Kenny, these are the jurists who try to define the concept of crime, but the Galileo himself contended that it is not possible to define the crime precisely. The basic reason behind not defining the crime is that the concept of crime is varied. It changes from time to time, place to place, and situations. But then also, it is necessary to understand what is meant by crime. Literally, or for a layman, we can say crime is nothing but any illegal act for which some punishments has been provided. Or if we see Indian Penal Code, it merely not referred as a crime, but it deals with the offenses. If we see section 40, that deals with what is meant by offense. Offense is nothing but any prohibited act by this code or Indian Penal Code. Now, so far crime is concerned, to understand crime, we can easily summarize it that whenever any person perform any act with guilty intention and the act which he has performed is prohibited and some punishment is provided for that act, that amounts to the crime. Means in simple we can say crime means actus reus plus mens rea is equal to crime. These are the two main ingredients of crime, that mens rea and actus reus. Merely mens rea does not provide the punishment, or even for a prohibited act, punishment cannot be given. Now, so far Indian Penal Code is concerned, Indian Penal Code is universal criminal law and it is applicable in India. Therefore, I am saying that it is universal criminal law for India. If we see the making of Indian Penal Code, everyone knows that Lord Babington Macaulay has prepared this code, or Indian Penal Code. If we see the constitution and the provision of this Indian Penal Code, almost we can find that there are some provision which dealing with each and every criminal act by one or other way. Lord Macaulay, though prepared this Indian Penal Code, he thoroughly followed the jurisprudence of Bentham, or criminal jurisprudence propounded by Bentham. So we can say that Bentham's criminal jurisprudence view has been followed by the Lord Babington Macaulay, and he enacted this Indian Penal Code. So far this code is concerned, it is having 23 chapters along with 511 sections. 511 sections are in numbers, but time to time it was amended as per the requirement, and right now you may find that there are 577 or 80 sections. 580 sections are there in Indian Penal Code. So far Indian Penal Code is concerned, it has provided the specific provision for crime from section 121. Now what is regarding section 120? There is no offense in these previous sections. If we see the chapterization scheme or constitution of this Indian Penal Code, initially it has provided the preliminary and subsequently the general explanations. Now dear friends, explanation and definition are the most important part in criminal law. Why these definitions are important? If you go through the chapter of general explanation, you can find that each and everything tried to be defined by Indian Penal Code. Even you can find some petty concept, what is meant by man, what is meant by woman, what is meant by death. These all things has been defined or explained by the Indian Penal Code. Then why it is necessary? It is a general rule that criminal law must be specific. If criminal law is not specific, it may create the chaos. Therefore, Indian Penal Code almost try to define or explain, I am using both the word, try to define and explain various concepts which has been used by the further section. So far the general explanations are concerned, the most 2 or 3 things are required to understand, to know the real gist of the crime in Indian Penal Code. And that concepts are nothing but the 2 basic things, that dishonestly and fraudulently, which has been explained or defined by Indian Penal Code. And if we see the further various provision had used this word, that whenever any person fraudulently or dishonestly performs such and such act, it is called as a particular offense. So to understand this fraudulent or dishonestly are nothing but showing the mens rea in Indian Penal Code. As I have already contended that actus reus and mens rea, these are the two main component which constitute the crime. If any ingredient is absent, then that cannot be called as an crime or punishment cannot be provided for that act. And these two terms, that dishonestly and fraudulently, are dealing with the mens rea, and therefore that's are required to be understand. Now so far the further things are concerned. Now the next chapter deals with the general exceptions, that may be the chapter number 4th. So far general exceptions are concerned, you can find that the code has provided the situations or circumstances while performing any act. That act may constitute or may result into the injury of someone, but that cannot be called as a crime. If you see the contents of general exceptions, you can find that that act are immune from the punishment. Now why? Because that circumstances are dealing with the absence of mens rea. You can find that even mistake of fact, accident or misfortune or necessity or act committed by child or act committed under intoxication, these acts are considered that while performing these act there is absence of mens rea, and that can be seen only in two aspects. Some acts are nothing but the justiciable acts, and the other are excusable act. Means general exceptions are dealing from section 76 to 106, and these all 30 sections are either based on justiciable act and the excusable act. Now so far further part of this Indian Penal Code is concerned, that deals with the different kind of offenses. That are offenses against state, offenses against public tranquility, offenses against religion. I am merely contending the main offenses. Offenses against the human body, offenses against the life or offenses against the property, offenses against the document, or offenses against the reputation. These are the main components of this Indian Penal Code. So dear friend, Indian Penal Code or this universal criminal law is always necessary to be understand when you are working in legal field. Either you are working as an advocate, or even being a student of law, or even a judicial officer, or even a public prosecutor. Everyone must understand this, because this is universal criminal law. So far crime and punishments are concerned, that are dealing with the substantive law. And to understand this Indian Penal Code, it is not required to keep in mind each and every wording of all sections. To understand this Indian Penal Code, it's my suggestion that whenever you are going to study the Indian Penal Code, try to understand the ingredient of the offenses, whatever it may be. Either if you take the example of theft, or if you take the example of culpable homicide, or if you take the example of any other offense, rather than the definitions or actual wording provided by the Indian Penal Code, you are required to understand the ingredient of that section. Then you can easily keep in your mind the provisions and offenses. So far understanding Indian Penal Code is concerned, these are the most important thing. Once you get and practice to understand the ingredient of any offense, then definitely you can easily summarize any section. For example, if you considered any particular offense, the Indian Penal Code firstly define it and then subsequently deals with its punishment along with its aggravative form. So dear friends, to understand Indian Penal Code, you have to build up as an idea to understand the ingredients of the particular crime and the basic punishment, and then you can easily understand the aggravative form of all such kind of crimes. For the introduction of Indian Penal Code, you have to keep this thing in your mind. So far, the other provisions and particulars we will see in the upcoming sessions or videos. Thank you very much.